Welcome to Growth Marketer Academy with Ryan and Andrea Eldridge.
Keyword research is the foundation of successful SEO.
You've got to have a clear understanding of the keywords your customers are likely to use to search for your product or service. Without it, you'll waste time and resources creating assets that don't line up with your customer searches.
And you'll likely end up with unqualified or irrelevant leads.
And nobody wants to throw money at leads that don't want what you're selling.
Today, we have 7 tools that those of us in the know use to make keyword research go faster.
After today, you'll be in the know too.
This is Ryan Eldridge.
And this is Andrea Eldridge.
And welcome to Growth Marketer Academy.
This is episode 16 of the Growth Marketer Academy podcast.
I'm Ryan Eldridge, Chief Strategist at Squirrel Digital Marketing.
And this is Andrea Eldridge, Creative Director at Squirrel Digital Marketing.
So think of keywords as the language that searchers are using to find you online. If you don't speak that same language, you're never going to reach them.
And while faster keyword research may not get your blood pumping, it's a huge component to ensuring that your ads and relevant pages get in front of potential leads. So what's a keyword?
Oh, dear Lord. Well, it's the information that people use when they're looking for stuff online. Like you go to Google, you go to Bing, or if you're one of those weird people that still use Yahoo or Ask or DuckDuckGo or any of the other search engines, you're typing in words in there. It's a search term. But in the other side of the world where we're marketers, we call those keywords.
Okay, so let's say, for example, I'm interested in basketball, which I'm not, but, let's go for it anyway.
Totally.
Some possible search terms might be basketball games online, basketball rules. Basketball itself is pretty vague. So, keep in mind, searchers tend to add more information because they want to get pages returned that are relevant to what they're looking for. And so the more specific they make their search, the better their chances are of finding exactly what they're looking for. And this leads us to the different formats of keywords that you'll come across.
Yeah. So what we do is we break them down into 3 main sections, and we kind of follow along the lines of what Brian Dean does. And Brian Dean's a really popular SEO strategist, and he's got a lot of YouTube videos and stuff. But he breaks it down into head, body, and tail. So the head keywords we consider broad terms, right? They usually have large search volumes, but it's kind of hard to nail down exactly what the intent is behind. So again, basketball would be a great head search term, right? Okay. Or a keyword. Or if you typed in like basketball hoops, it's kind of hard to determine exactly what is that person going after. Are they looking to purchase basketball hoops? Are they looking for rules or the height that basketball hoops should be? Or are they looking for pickup games in the neighborhood? They're looking for people to play hoops with them, as the kids on the street say. Right?
So then after that would be body keywords. Yeah. That would be more phrases that reveal more about user intent. They're a little more focused than head keywords. So this would be, for example, basketball hoop types. It narrows down what it is that the searcher's looking for, but doesn't necessarily clarify their intent with that search.
So with tail keywords, that's going to be super specific long tail keywords. This is going to be multiple words usually, and it's going to be much easier to determine exactly what the searcher's looking for. So for example, if somebody typed in basketball hoops for sale in city name, right?
Yeah.
That would make it very clear we know exactly what that person's searching for.
And in the show notes, we'll include a graphic that helps you kind of conceptualize these different formats that graphs basically search volume versus the number of words in the phrase. And you can kind of see how the graph, as the number of words in the phrase gets higher, the search volume decreases. But alternatively, you can gain more insight into what the searcher's actually looking for and what their intent is with that search.
Yeah. And long tail keywords usually have low competition, but high conversion rates. And they're usually used by individuals that are near the end of their purchase cycle.
So that would mean basically someone who's already done the majority of their basic research and they're really in that buying phase of ready to buy. And so those long tail keywords get more and more specific as the customer is looking more and more specifically down the path.
Yeah. And if you're building a big list of keywords, you'll see that you'll have a certain number of head keywords, which are, usually a decent amount. Then you'll have even more in the body keywords, and then just a ton in the long tail, just tons and tons and tons.
Because there's so many variations of what a searcher might type in when they're looking for your product or service.
Exactly.
So thing to keep in mind here is that you're going to trade volume for conversion if you get overly specific. So the key is to find the best balance to drive the right traffic to your page. That's going to be traffic that's interested specifically in your product or service, not looking for something that's kind of aligned keyword-wise, but not exactly what you're selling.
Yeah.
And so it's really important that we identify the right keywords early on, because those chosen keywords are going to dictate your entire SEO campaign.
Yeah. And you should build your content strategy and develop your site around the words and phrases that you determine are most likely to bring in traffic that converts.
That's the key part, the traffic that converts, not just traffic, the traffic that converts.
Because you could write articles all day long about the rules of basketball and how to play the game and the exact height of basketball hoops. But if somebody's
you're selling basketball shoes, it's not going to do you any good.
Exactly. I mean, you can create a whole informational campaign around that, but that's a much longer journey for your customer than especially when you're dealing with bringing traffic to your site. You want people more relevant, looking for the thing that you're selling.
Yes.
I want people who are looking for basketball hoops. So comparison articles of different brands or different types and things like that would be much better.
All right, so now we get into the exciting part, the actual keyword research process.
I didn't know there was going to be an exciting part. Now I'm jazzed.
Well, the thing is that sometimes when we get into these foundational pieces, when it comes to the stuff that you just need to do to get the rest of your campaigns to convert properly, it can seem kind of boring, and you're like, keyword research. It's kind of like doing your homework or brushing your teeth, but it's so important to the rest of how much you build out. You can waste so much time and money building content or pages around the wrong keywords if you don't really know in advance a good basis of keywords that are going to convert for your customer.
Yeah. So step number 1 is called the discovery phase.
Ooh, it sounds so exciting.
And here what you want to do is you just generally want to brainstorm, just empty out your brain of all the keywords, search terms you think that your customers are going to be using to search for you. That'll just get it all out there. Most people, when they're doing pay-per-click or they're doing SEO, that's all they do.
That's where they stop.
They go, I
bet they're going to lose this.
Yeah,
That's
I'm a great mind reader. I know what my customers want, and I'll put that in there. And then, of course, they spend 2 years building out content to crappy keywords.
Yeah. So what you're focusing on here is what problem are your customers trying to solve with your product or service, and how might they communicate that? So let's say you're a dog trainer. You could include keywords like potty train puppy or leash training or stop dog barking. So you're looking for the things that your potential customer would, if they were searching the internet for something, stumble upon your product or service and go, aha, that can fix what I have going on.
And if you want a detailed way to do exactly what we're talking about, you can go back to episode 2, check out our audience analysis. That way you don't have to try to read your customer's mind. It gives you exact step-by-step instructions on how you can do an audience analysis and get kind of in the shoes of your customer, so to speak.
And, as much as we all think that we are super smart people, keep in mind that you do have other resources at your disposal. If you've got anybody who works for you, now is the time in this phase of discovery where you want to gather as many things, as much information as possible. So make use of the data that already exists. Talk to your sales or customer support team. Ask them, what do customers ask for when they first call or write? Read online comments and questions. And, basically just kind of mine your own information, this stuff that your team, they're the ones on the front lines that are talking to customers every day. When a customer calls up on the phone, are they saying, hey, like for our customers, for one of our brands, our technology brands, a lot of it's, I can't get online, or it used to be I'm getting pop-ups and, my computer's acting weird. These are things that if that's the first words out of your customer's mouth, you want to build some search keywords around those things that people are obviously looking for when they stumble upon your product or service.
Yeah. And you can also read your competitors' content. You can look at their keywords that they're looking for. You can see what kind of intent they're going after, certain themes that they're doing. Again, if you want to get really in depth on a competitor analysis, take a look at episode 6, where we go step by step on how to do a competitor analysis. Those are really foundational research steps that allow make this process way easier.
Yes. And keep in mind, you want to focus on direct competitors, not indirect competitors. So direct competitors would be people that are, or companies in your niche, selling the same stuff as you, not those kind of peripheral brands that are in the same genre but not doing what you do.
Yeah.
And focus on those that are doing it right, those that have a well-honed AdWords campaign, particularly if you notice that there's a specific company or brand that pops up in the searches that you want your page to appear on. Those are prime targets for your competitor analysis.
Yeah, and if you're doing keyword research, I always caution everyone, no matter how smart you are, pretend like your competitor is smarter, just for a little while until you can prove it right or wrong. Because that way you don't discount, oh no, why are they going after that word? It's so stupid. Or why did they write the ad that way? It's so dumb. It may be dumb, but don't actually give that value until you've actually tested it yourself.
Yep.
And so when you're seeing this competitor come up for certain search terms, if it's something you haven't thought of before, keep that in mind. It might be something that they're making a lot of money on.
So next step is grouping. This basically entails taking your big, massive list, because it's going to be huge at this point, and grouping your keywords into categories based on shared themes or intent. So for each group, you're going to create search personas. And I know we've talked about personas before, and I can see a little note in here where you're referring listeners to episode 2, audience analysis for avatar worksheet. That basically we added a link to a worksheet that we put together that'll help you create these customer personas. Just as a brief overview, you're basically, again, looking for details about your sample searcher, things like age, gender, income, hobbies, struggles, and aspirations. Go beyond just the basics, because what you're trying to do is really see the world through their lens.
Yeah. So let's pretend that you're a shoe supplier, because I love talking about shoes. Let's pretend you're a shoe supplier and you're setting up a new site. Your search persona might look something like you're a woman 18 to 35, looking for running shoes, certain brands like Adidas, Asics, New Balance, Nike, that sort of thing. Their pain point, they need new running shoes. Women's
sore feet.
Yeah, the search queries they might use is something like women's running shoes or women's shoes, things like that. And then the solutions they may be looking for is things like content that includes descriptions of shoes or comparisons of different types of brands of shoes, images, reviews, actionable links. Yep. Yeah. Then they might have what would be their compelling call to action to this particular kind of searcher, relevant purchasing options or things that are based on the user's query. And then the metrics. You want to figure out what the rank is and the traffic for that particular target keyword. Does that make sense? We have a copy of this up on the show notes, so you can take a look at it. You can see specifically how to build out an avatar worksheet specifically for keyword research.
So step 3 in this process is determining keyword value. That basically, your intent here is to figure out which of the keywords from your big list and your grouped keywords are worth going after. So you need to be able to compare the value of each on your list, and how to determine that value is based on a few different factors.
Yeah, you want to look at monthly search volume. You want to see what that is in relation to your competition level. And then you want to just basically see how well it converts or how likely it is to convert.
How could you figure that out?
Well, first you go to Keyword Planner, Google's Keyword Planner in AdWords, and it's one of the best keyword search tools you can use. Type in your search query in there, and it'll give you a big list of all the keywords or related keywords to the search term you just put in. Okay. And then it'll give you ranks based on how much volume that keyword gets. And these are representative numbers. They're not exact. For some reason, Google doesn't tell us exactly how many people search for red women shoes in Google, but it gives you a representation number that you can compare to other search numbers when you're doing this research.
Oh, okay.
And then it'll also tell you the price or the value of that particular search or what you'd likely pay for that on pay-per-click. And that's where you can tell the real amount of like
Competition for that word.
competition for that keyword. Yeah. So if it's like $10, you're like, "Ooh, that's a big competitor."
Very competitive word.
And if it's like $3, you're like, "Okay, well maybe that's not going to be the best." Right?
Yeah. But it's kind of a balance between those things. I think we're going to probably talk about that in a second. So competitive, expensive keywords are going to be harder to place for if you're looking to build out SEO content searches. You got to keep in mind that if people are paying a lot for that word in pay-per-click, they're going to be just as motivated as you are to try and get search traffic that they aren't paying for, which means there's going to be other content out there. There's going to be a lot of people fighting for placement in that search term. So, just keep that in mind in terms of where to rank that keyword in terms of what you want to go after.
And in the show notes, we're going to put a picture of Keyword Planner with some different search terms in there so you can kind of see what we're talking about. You can see what the monthly average search volume is, what the competition level is, what it's being rated at, and then the average cost per those search terms.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You can narrow down keyword popularity based on factors like geography and level of competition. But there's another interesting thing. So depending on what your focus is for that keyword, what you're looking to do with that keyword, how you value it changes. So, obviously we're big fans of conversion. And if your focus is conversion, you're actually going to determine the value of a keyword based on including intent and a determination of how that keyword falls on a scale of user intent in order to really value that word appropriately.
So you can segment your keywords based on 4 different types of intent. And so the first one is navigational, right? That somebody is going to Google and they're looking for something specific. Like let's say they're looking up when their flight to Alaska is going to take off. And so they just type in Alaska Airlines. That's clearly all they're looking to do is go someplace. And it's called a navigational intent search.
They're just looking for the right URL to get to the specific place they're looking to do a specific task.
And if you type Google into Google, it breaks the internet. Don't try it. Don't do it. Wait till the podcast is over, then do it.
All right, because you're going to do it now.
Yeah.
So the next category would be informational. This is when the searcher is looking for a specific answer or educational resources. So something like, what was the name of that actor in the Firefly series?
Oh, yeah. What was that guy's name?
Now it's going to haunt you.
Yeah, the guy's name was Mal. I know that you're talking about the captain, I'm sure. What's that guy's name?
Let it go. You can't let it go now.
All
Okay.
right.
So informational is, again, you're just in their research phase and they're looking for a specific answer to a specific question.
Yeah. Another one is transactional. These keywords hint at the searcher's desire to take a specific action. So
These are my favorite.
Yeah, they might want to buy something, or they might be looking for a specific person or a trade or a service that somebody provides, or a specific tool to achieve a particular goal.
And then your last category would be branded. So that's pretty clear when a customer mentions a specific brand. And again, they're looking for a specific brand or a website in that search. So keywords that are best suited for conversions are, not surprisingly, transactional, why they're my favorite. So searchers that use transactional terms are more likely to be at the end of their conversion funnel, more likely to be ready to purchase.
Yeah, so let's take an example. We threw up an example up in the show notes. But let's say, for example, you're looking to book a Chinese vacation or a China vacation, right?
Okay.
And so here's some search terms that people might type in, something like Beijing Airport. Now, we did a rating on this to see how many queries there were per month for that. It was 980.
I should say we didn't do the rating,
Yeah,
but the rating was done.
And then on the intent, we would consider that navigational, right? They're looking for the Beijing airport. That's a navigational. And then the value of that, because it's not likely a transactional search query, we're just going to say that's low.
And again, this is because we are focusing on conversion in your keyword valuation. And so if you weren't, and you had a different focus, what kind of other focus would you have other than conversion? Just like branding, or?
Well, yeah. I mean, depending on where you're going, let's say your focus is traffic, right? Well, then you're probably going to go way more educational, because then you're just trying to grab as many people as you can. So you may say, my AdWords campaign isn't going to drive direct sales immediately. What I'm looking to do is instead bring clients or potential leads onto my page, have them look it over, and I might convert them, but it's okay if I don't. Instead, I'm going to go retarget them later, either on another platform like Facebook or Twitter or something else, and I'm going to get them there. Then you're not really looking for transactional conversions. You're just looking for traffic.
Oh, okay.
So it can be different depending on what you're looking for.
Okay.
But if you're looking for like, let's say the search query is hotels in, I can't pronounce this word. I'm going to say, what is it?
Cheyenne.
Cheyenne. Is that how you pronounce that?
I believe so.
X-I-A-N? Cheyenne?
I think so.
Why don't they spell it with an SH? Because that would make way more sense.
Because it's not
That's
English.
how I would type it into Google, though. I'd be like, hotels in Cheyenne, and I'd get like Wyoming.
Yes.
I wouldn't get anything about Beijing
you
or
would.
wherever we're going.
But
Anyway, so you'd get a lot more search queries on that, 2,644 search queries on that, or estimated volume of that. But it's technically, again, this is not necessarily transactional. This is probably going to be a little more like, I can't remember what the freaking
acronym is for, huh?
What is ComInv?
I have no idea. That's why I made you do this part.
So then another search query you might have if you're trying to book a Chinese vacation is like 7-day China tour package.
That's very specific.
Yeah, and it's clearly transactional.
Yes.
That person is not looking for how many birds fly over China in a month, right?
Yeah.
They're clearly looking to book a vacation. It's got a much lower search volume, about 127. It's clearly transactional, and it's high intent. So we're going to go after something like that if that's what we're selling, right? Does
Okay.
that make sense?
Makes sense. All right. So we've given you a lot of data, probably talked to you about all the stuff you need to do to gather appropriate keywords. But this is going to take a long time. Yeah, you know, if you would take you forever to repeat these steps for every keyword that you brainstorm in your seed list. And, you know, by the time you narrow down a list of 3 or 5 keywords to target, things have probably already changed in the search queries. So what we're all about today is how to speed this process up and make it something that you can do repetitively throughout the course of both your AdWords and your SEO campaign to make sure you're still on track. And so for that, we have got 7 tools that will simplify your life for sure, because when it comes to keyword research, there is nothing like making it faster.
Yes. So some of these tools we've talked about before. We talked about on episode 6, our competitor analysis episode. Don't pause right now. It's cool. You can listen to that episode later. But for now, one of our favorite ones is Hrefs. And it's spelled kind of weird. It's A, the letter A, and the Hrefs. Hrefs.
Weird.
And it's a great website for spying on your competitors. What you can do is if you go to there and you plug in the URL of your competitors, and it'll return all of the popular keywords that your competitors are ranking in the search engine results pages. We call them SERPs. And it'll show you the kind of an estimate of the traffic that they're getting.
And a key here, just remember, don't limit to your specific geographical area, because you want to see all the competitors nationwide that are doing it right.
Yeah. So on the show notes, we put a picture up of a just an example search, and then we gave you some ideas of exactly how to determine the volume. Keep in mind that they don't have access to the Google Analytics for these websites, so they're all estimated volume. They're not exact. And if you want to get an error or how much of an error it is to see how accurate it is, type in your own website and then compare that to your Google Analytics, and then you'll kind of see what is the margin of error here about their estimate of value, or the estimate of how many users they get.
And you want to do this for multiple competitors, so don't just pick one and do a search based on that one competitor. You want to compile a list of proven keywords that you should be creating content for.
Yeah. Another really cool tool you can use is called SpyFu, and SpyFu allows you to search the domain just like on Ahrefs, and it'll show you everywhere on Google that particular domain is listed, whether it's a search like an SEO page, or whether it's a pay-per-click ad. It'll give you every single keyword that they're currently bidding on in AdWords, and it'll give you their organic rank for those keywords. So it's a really great tool. Again, keep in mind, it's still estimates. I've put in my own domains in there and seen, they don't have this, they don't have this, or they do, they're overestimating this. So these are all estimates, but it'll give you a really good basis to start.
All right. Tool number 2, use Google Search Console to build on existing success. So if your site's been live for some time, you might, or hopefully already, have certain keywords that you're already ranking well for. So pull up Google Search Console for your own URL and explore the Search Analytics section. You're going to basically be looking for keywords for which you rank in the top 30, and look at position to identify your particular best performers. And again, we've included a sample of what the Search Analytics page looks like for Google, so that you can kind of see Okay, so if position is, for this keyword is 1.4, position for this keyword is, 2.5, you can, from your own rankings, gauge which of your own keywords that you're hopefully targeting and not just accidentally stumbling upon, you're actually doing somewhat well for. If there are multiple keywords that rank well, congratulations, because that's totally what you want. But now you got to basically narrow it down by comparing impressions and click-through rate to see, just because you are ranking well in the search results page doesn't mean people are actually clicking through. And so you want to factor those things in.
So let's say, for an example, you've got a blog and you're talking about paleo diet.
Because why wouldn't you be?
I mean, I got one. I think everyone has a paleo blog. Anyway, Search Console might show you that you're ranking 9th for the term paleo diet, but you want to rank higher than that because 9th, it's crap. I don't want to.
That's what your blog's all about.
I want to rank number 1. Gosh darn it.
Yeah.
So in order to rank higher, you just upgrade your content, and so
you make it sound so easy.
I know it actually kind of is, but so what you're looking to do is be the ultimate authority on the internet for that specific keyword. And so if you go into your website and look at the page that you're ranking 9th for on paleo diet, and it's a 500-word article, that just tells you you've just got to make a more comprehensive article. And so you might go to your competitors who are outranking you, read the articles they've got, and compile that into your article. Not exactly, can't steal it, but you can certainly take what they're saying and reword it and add it to yours. So you can have this huge, massive, definitive awesomeness of paleo diet. And then you'll jump from 9th and slowly rise in ranking, assuming that your backlink profile is good, up to number 1, hopefully.
Theoretically. Yeah. Also, again, depending on the competition. Again, you've got a lot more information on this particular topic on SEO for lead generation, which we went over in great detail in episode 8.
Yes.
So another good one to go back to.
Well, there's a few ways that you can upgrade your content on your website, right? You don't want to just necessarily rewrite the content and just go days good, because Google doesn't necessarily know that they need to recrawl that page.
Okay.
A couple things you can do is you can go into Search Console and ask them to recrawl the page, and if Google feels like it, maybe they will. But another way you can do that is you can change enough of the content so that way when Google does see it, they do, oh, okay, this is fresh, right? If it was a 500-word content piece and you just added 100 words to it, Google may not necessarily go, oh, that's an interesting new piece, right? So you really want to make it a lot bigger.
So another thing that you want to do is you want to make your content evergreen. This basically means that it's not likely to be outdated in the near future. So this would be a way to ensure more consistent stream of traffic and links. If you're talking about specific products and giving price points for things that are, priced that way and available now, you're going to be dating your content later. If someone comes back to look at that post in, say, 2 years and that product no longer exists. Another tip here is, perhaps avoid referencing specific holidays or specific, times of year in your post, because again, people are like, wait, it's Easter and you are talking about Christmas. So I don't think we're quite on the same page here. You want to republish content that's already definitive and evergreen, because this can actually improve your page rank and traffic. It's interesting. Moz actually did an experiment to determine the effect of republishing blog posts to determine the effect on traffic. And the results were really cool. I mean, for every post that they reposted, they got an increase in both their weekly organic traffic and just basically how much this post was being shown. So the one thing to keep in mind though with this is don't do it too often. You don't want to just republish a lot of articles without any actual content changes, because Google actually views that negatively, and so you'll get kind of dinged for that instead. They did this experiment just to see if it really made any difference to republish with, without content change, actually, just with republishing and posting those to Google. So up to a certain point, that can work if the content is good, if it was already a strong performer, and you look at that content and you go, well, there isn't really anything about it that I would change, you can still republish that existing content.
Also, if you do make quite a few definitive changes to that, you want to give not only Google, but also your readers a note that, hey, you've updated this content, that this isn't something that was published back in October of 2007 and has never been refreshed. And so you can go in there and just type in, like, this was originally written on such and such a date and it was updated on such and such a date. So that way the readers go, oh, okay, this is fresh and new. And Google will also try to push that towards the top of the rankings because it'll maybe outrank some older content that's already out there.
Well, and I think it'll also, for people who, because sometimes when I'm doing a search and I'm looking for current data, I'll define my search terms so that it'll only show me articles that were published within a certain period of time. So it'll allow these older posts that are still evergreen and relevant to reemerge into those dated search queries too. So basically, if you're going to do a republish, though, just make sure that you're choosing the best of your content, stuff that could use a boost, and drive your own page rank by making it fresh.
So tool number 3, use something called Ubersuggest.
Sounds fun.
With Ubersuggest website, you can just type in your keyword, and what it'll do is it'll give you a bunch of long tail variations on that keyword. And ultimately, what this is doing is, when you type into Google and you type in some words, and it shows you the Google Suggest opens up and it starts saying, "Hey, if you're looking
These are
for
popular queries that start off that way."
It's ultimately what it's doing is kind of bringing all of those together. Plus, if you look all the way down at the bottom of the search engine result page, it also gives you some other queries that it thinks you might be interested in. It basically takes all of those together, makes a huge database out of them. So when you type in the words like, Mother's Day gifts 2018, it'll go, oh, here's a bunch of other keywords that you can look at.
Okay. And it basically gives you, for your intents and purposes, just a bunch of long tail variations.
Yeah.
Again, if you want more information on this, you can go to episode 3, Keyword Matrix. So let's give an example, though. So let's say, for example, that your keyword is online marketing, which obviously we have done ourselves before. Ubersuggest would suggest certain long tail variations like online marketing tips, online marketing jobs, online marketing strategies. And so you need to basically go through that list and figure out what's relevant to your specific product or service and decide, do you want to create relevant content? So maybe you create a blog post, best online marketing strategies for B2B companies, as a way to drive traffic specifically to that long tail variation.
An alternative is to use a tool called Answer the Public. Now, this is kind of a weird website. It's published over in the UK, and ultimately you just have a picture of this guy who looks like a professor and a search query bar, and you just type in the words you want, and it'll give you other search queries based on the words that you used. And it's questions oriented, questions like people that what people would ask about that particular search query.
Okay.
It is a website that's got a kind of a weird user experience, but it's worth checking out. So as an example, we typed in search social media marketing, and we put an example up on the show notes to show you what we got in return. And it says things like, where social media marketing, then asks a bunch of questions about where, how social media marketing, and a bunch of questions about how, and then who social media marketing, and all of the. So it gives you a ton of new information about how you should write your content
based
to answer
on what
these
people are
questions.
searching for, questions they're asking.
Yeah.
Another alternative that we've used as well is keywordtool.io. This lets you search for what's popular on other platforms. So this is things like the App Store, YouTube, and Bing. And you might think, like, why do I care about, YouTube searches? But it's actually the second most popular search engine after Google, which is kind of crazy.
And so can't be ignored.
No.
I mean, even Bing is third or fourth to Google's awesomeness.
Although quite a ways down the list in terms of volume, to be fair. But still, it's important if you're looking to get thorough to make sure that you don't exclude some of these other really popular search tools.
Yeah. So number 4, learn from your competitors' ad spend with SEMrush. Now, SEMrush is a program we use all the time here at Squirrel. Let's say, for an example, you want to find out what keywords they're ranking for, what their websites...
what your competitors are ranking for.
Sorry. What your competitors are ranking for. Not only what keywords they're ranking for, but how well they're ranking, the different places they're advertising online, what their pay-per-click budgets look like, what their pay-per-click ads look like. They have all of that stuff in there. So SEMrush is a really great tool. We went into great detail again on episode 7 for paid search for lead generation. You can check that out. And it talks a little bit about how to use SEMrush.
And, keep in mind that when somebody repeatedly spends money on a keyword in pay-per-click, it's probably converting well. I mean, you would hope that is an indicator that they're not just throwing money at a word that isn't converting. So you're going to want to go to SEMrush and enter your competitor's URL. And then that tool is going to basically analyze their entire pay-per-click campaign.
And it returns a lot of insightful information like the keywords that they bid on most, what their general paying, what they're generally paying for that keyword. And it also gives you an estimation of traffic.
Cool. Okay. And again, we included an image of what kind of information is returned from this tool, as well as what it looks like when they give you this information in the show notes.
Yeah.
You're going to want to go after keywords that your competition is spending the most money on up to a point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was kind of the original tip here. And then, as I was really thinking this through, I was like, you really don't want to duke it out over a super expensive term if you can target less expensive long tail variations. So, we've had this happen before where you have a really entrenched competitor in a specific location, and you just if they will spend whatever it takes to be position one, and you're like, oh, well, they're spending $1 bajillion for these 4 keywords. I'm going to go after those too.
Yeah.
It's probably not the best focus. Really, you're going to look in that case for ones that, it's not to say to ignore those keywords entirely, but just kind of really
see if you can build some long tail off of the keywords they're looking at, things like that. Yeah.
Yes.
But again, what I would do is, in general, is even if the keyword looks like it's outside of my price range, I would still test it first before I dismiss it and say I can't go after it because my competitor's dominating it.
Yeah.
I would still test it because you don't really know until you know. And so I would still run ads. I'd still check it out and see if it's worth it before I either dismiss it or invest all of my life savings in it.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you can afford to. All right, so tool number 5, predict the future with Google Trends. I love predicting the future.
Yeah, it's totally possible.
So basically, when it comes to keyword research, the reason we mentioned early on that you're going to want to do this process repetitively and, not just once, and you're not just one and done on this one.
Yeah.
It's because keyword research is really all about staying ahead of trends. If you rely on historical data and competitor keywords, you're going to basically be targeting the most expensive and highly competitive search terms. But what if you could get ahead of the pack and be the first one to the party? That's always the nicest.
So what's cool about Google Trends is it allows you to compare different keywords against each other. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you wrote a definitive article about Google Webmaster Tools. It was awesome. It was everything you needed to know about Google Webmaster Tools. Problem is Google changed the name of Google Webmaster Tools to Search Console. And so if you were to go right at when they released it at first, you'd have to have your article referencing Webmaster Tools because that's what people were looking at. If you typed in Search Console, you'd see the volume was super low for it. But over time, the Search Console volume has gone up and Webmaster Tools has gone down. And so you need to know when that takes place so you can start changing your content to target those new keywords, even though the customer or the user is still looking for the exact same thing. They're just using different words now to find it. Does that kind of make sense?
Mm-hmm. So when you use this Google Trends, another one is actually Google Autocomplete.
Mm-hmm.
That one I'm not as familiar with, but apparently it does a similar function. Basically, it's going to show you search trends. So you're going to select a time frame, and you want to choose one that's long enough to see changes in interest for your keyword over time. And then you're going to compare your keyword against alternative keywords. So for example, we might look at digital marketing agency versus inbound marketing agency. And it's going to show you historical data over the period of time that you select. And in that case, it's going to show you a clear rise in interest for digital marketing over the past couple of years. And, basically tells you that while this other term, inbound marketing agency, is relatively static, the digital marketing agency is continuing to rise. So you want to respond to people's evolving needs and create content ideally before there's as much competition.
Yeah, and we're going to add a picture of that particular search in the show notes so you can kind of see inbound marketing is kind of low and digital marketing agency is just skyrocketing. And
lots of stuff in the show notes this time. My goodness. All right.
So next you can use number 6 is called Market Muse, and you can use Market Muse to uncover gaps in your content. What Market Muse does is it's basically uses LSI, or linguistic semantic intent, I want to say?
No.
Linguistic semantic information. Anyway.
I don't think that's it at all. Latent semantic indexing.
Oh, see, you got
I would love to say you were close, but you weren't at all.
I had semantic in there.
Yeah.
That was right.
We'll apparently come
I
back
didn't
to
say
that.
latent, though? Okay. Anyway,
LSI.
what Market Muse allows you to do is it scans your content, and let's say your content is around. You're talking about Deadpool, for example, just because it's nice and easy, and I have a Deadpool with me. Okay. So if your content was around Deadpool, you're going to say other things than the word Deadpool over and over and over and over again in your content. If you keyword stuff your piece of content with just Deadpool over and over again, it's going to be hard to read, and Google will likely derank you because they're going to be like, dude, seriously, you're just saying Deadpool 500 times in a 1,200 word article. That's not cool. But instead, you're going to use other words likely when you're talking about Deadpool, guns, movies, Ryan Reynolds. You're going to say different words that are related but are not exactly Deadpool. And Google's going to search all of those words that are around your keyword and determine whether or not this is a definitive article about the subject that you're talking about. Does that make sense?
Okay.
What Market Muse does is it kind of uncovers those other words. If you don't know a lot about Deadpool and you don't know that the star was Ryan Reynolds and then this is Deadpool 2 comes out in May and that Deadpool 1 came out 2 years ago and that he's an X-Men and comic books and all this other stuff. If you don't know all that stuff, Market Muse will kind of uncover that for you so you can add those things into your article and your content and tell Google this is a definitive piece about the subject you're talking about.
And that's because this is important because Google rewards thoroughness, and if you're ultimately trying to get a page to rank in a relatively competitive keyword, it may not be that you can necessarily improve on the content that already exists. Mm-hmm. So you want to make sure that your content meticulously covers the information around your root keyword without just repeating that same keyword over and over again. Yeah. And the more comprehensive your content, the higher you'll rank with Google. And basically, so you can measure the performance of your content with Market Muse. So you enter your domain or your subdomain and the primary keyword that you're targeting. And Market Muse is actually going to crawl your domain and compare your work with similar content on the web. So it's going to show frequently used related keywords, including those keywords frequency, relevance, and volume. So again, we have an image on the web, the show notes page. But it basically gives you, like you were saying, those additional keywords that are related, mm-hmm. keyword variants that you should make sure that you include in your content so that Google tags your content as particularly thorough.
And Market Muse isn't cheap. It's about $80 a month, but you can also use this on your competitor's site. It doesn't have to have access to your site on any kind of admin level at all. It just scans your website and the words that are on it. So if you want to go, if you see that a competitor is consistently outranking you for a particular keyword, you type in their domain and the keyword, and then it'll give you all of the LSI keywords they're using on their site, and then you go build your piece of content using those LSIs.
Okay, so tool number 7 is SERPstat, and that is a tool that is designed to help you basically put all of this data you've collected about keywords together. So it's a relatively new tool on the market, and it's interesting because it basically combines the features from almost all of the tools we've talked about into one tool.
Yep. So you can type in your keyword, and it'll answer the who, what, and why related questions. Remember from Answer the Public. It'll also reveal the top pages for that keyword, provide similar search suggestions, which is, we talked about on Ubersuggest. It'll suggest LSI keywords. There's Market Muse. Mm-hmm. And it'll show which keywords your competitors are bidding on. So there's SEMrush. So it's kind of like all of these tools all in one big, massive tool.
So also helpful because one tool to do them all.
Yes.
Is kind of our favorite.
And so we added a sample search query up on the show notes so you can take a look at that and you can see how good it is. We don't need to kind of go into all of the stuff that it can do, but it's clearly a tool that can combine multiple tools all in one.
So it may be if you start with that one, hence our listing it last, so that you had a better understanding of why you need the data that SERPstat includes. Yeah. But I would suggest maybe start there, see if it fits your budget for what you're able to do, and then determine if it gives you everything you need without individually using these other tools.
And a lot of these tools, they will give you a trial period to check them out, so you can try them against each other. So you can check out Market Muse against SERPstat and see which one worked better. Take a look at Ahrefs versus SEMrush or SpyFu and see which ones work. You get plenty of time to check them out, usually a couple of weeks for their trial period. So.
And then by the time you come around and needing to refresh your keyword research and make sure you're still on target, you'll know exactly which tool you want to use.
That's it.
Until you hone in on the words and phrases that your customers are using to look for you, your content strategy won't convert.
So think of your keywords research as an investment in the future for your digital marketing success.
Because without knowing what keywords you should be targeting, you're just going to spin your wheels.
So that's it for today. Be sure to head over to growthmarketeracademy.com to check out our show notes and links to resources in today's episode.
And if you're finding our podcast to be helpful or cool, be sure to rate it on whatever platform you're listening on.
Or better yet, just leave us a review.
And make sure you don't miss next week's episode when we'll cover ways that optimizing images can boost your SEO.
Whoa, I'm not going to miss that. I'm going to be here for that.
I will be too.
I'm Ryan Eldridge.
And I'm Andrea Eldridge.
Thanks for tuning in to Growth Marketer Academy.
This has been Growth Marketer Academy with Ryan and Andrea Eldridge.